Hello, this is John with Think the Business Solutions, and today I want to go over the offline credit card feature for Heartland. Called Store and Forward. Store and Forward is Heartland's feature that allows credit card payments to be collected in offline mode. This means that the system will automatically go into offline mode in the event that your internet goes down. However, there are other things that can cause credit card processing to not work besides internet going down, and here are some examples below. We've got local area network is down or incomplete, equipment could be offline, the dedicated socket server could be down or on the wrong network, or it could be a processor and or gateway issue. First, let's talk about the local area network or LAN. You may have heard of a LAN before and may not know what it is, so I'll do my best to explain it here. But Store and Forward will not work if the LAN or your internal network goes down. A lot of people don't know this, but there's a difference between the internet and your local area network. Your local area network or your LAN is what allows your equipment inside your store to communicate with each other. The internet is totally separate. The internet has to do with being able to leave the communication to leave the store and go outside of it, just like the World Wide Web. So that's your internet, but everything inside your store that talks to each other, that's your local area network. It's important to remember that. We also need to make sure you understand what all your equipment does. So I'm not going to read through every single one of these. I'll let you pause and read them if you'd like. But we have receipt printers here. Those do need to be connected to your local area network. It does have an Ethernet cable. It gets plugged in and everything. You've also got your point of sale workstations. Now those typically run off Wi-Fi. There are ways to hardwire them. We prefer using Wi-Fi. It didn't used to be the case. It used to be that hardwired was the way to go, but we've come a long way with Wi-Fi, and I think it actually works. It gives us less problems than the wired connections, believe it or not. Some of our merchants have kiosks, so there are kiosk terminals too, and they connect the same way. Then you have payment devices or PIN pads. Again, those have both capabilities. You can do hardwired or wireless. We prefer using Wi-Fi when we can. Then you have cash drawers, and those operate by plugging into the drawer kick part of the printer. Then you've got your network routers. Now, this is just one of the models we've used before. There are different models that we do use. It just depends on what you decide to buy when you purchase your equipment. This is an example, one of them. And same with the access points. Now, it is important to know that the router, it plugs in off your internet. So your internet comes in to your store. That is a box that your internet service provider provides. It's usually a modem or a modem and router. And then we plug that directly in. We plug the internet directly into the back of the router. And then everything after the router is all point of sale stuff. So you can think of this as being the main commander, or the main processor of your whole point of sale network. Everything's got to go through this before it can get out to the internet. So this thing is really kind of one of the main pieces that runs your local area network. This is the second piece that's important in running your local area network, is the access point. The access point can be different models too. We've got some that kind of look like they're like shaped like plates or saucers. This one is one of my favorites because it's designed to be able to sit on countertops, and you don't have to mount it up high if you don't want to. But it's important to know that these are a big part of your local area network as well. The access points are powered by these little white blocks. They're called power over Ethernet adapters. So your access point doesn't actually have a power cable. This device has a power cable, and then it sends power through these ports here over to your access point. So it's important to know that. And then There are some spots here and there that might have these, even though most of our stuff is wireless, we sometimes still use wired switches where we have multiple items that need to connect through wired connections. Now, there may be cases where you don't have an Ethernet cable where you want some of your equipment and that piece of equipment needs to be wired. So in those cases, we've been using these TP-Link extenders for over a year now, and they've been working great. So basically, this connects to the Wi-Fi access point wirelessly. And then there is a Ethernet cable connection on the bottom, and we take that and plug it into a printer or whatever needs to be connected wirelessly. So you can kind of think of it as like a converter. And then a lot of our locations have kitchen display systems. Those connect wirelessly. If you don't have a KDS system, then it's probably a physical kitchen printer. All right, now the local area network being down or incomplete. So if this happens to you, it may seem like your internet is down. However, that may not be the case. When this happens, you may notice that your printers and or KDSs are not working, they're not receiving orders. You may notice that your pin pad is not working correctly. Maybe it's not waking up when you hit the credit card button. These things, even though it may seem like they're internet issues, your internet may actually be fine. It may be a LAN issue at this point. And if it's a LAN issue and not an internet issue, guess what? The store and forward is not going to kick on automatically. It's a store and forward feature is only looking for your internet to be down. If it detects that the internet is down, that's when it automatically kicks on. So the first thing people try to do is they try to troubleshoot it. They think they're experts on iPads because they've got an Apple iPhone, and they try to troubleshoot it. Now, they try to do this by changing the internet connection because they think it's an internet problem. So they try changing the Wi-Fi and connecting to a different Wi-Fi. And please do not do this ever. I've got another video on this. It totally screws up the system. You just don't want to do it. Now, first thing you need to try to do when you start having issues is you need to try to determine if it's an internet connection issue. You need to find out maybe connecting to the guest Wi-Fi, maybe using your cell phone or laptop. And if you get Wi-Fi connection through a guest Wi-Fi, then that's kind of an indicator there that your internet is actually fine, and this may be a local area, a LAN issue. And like I said, please do not ever change the Wi-Fi. And once you confirm the internet is not the issue, you can try to reboot a few things on your own. This is one of the first spots I would go to that in this power injector for the access point. Because that's the best way to reboot the access point. That's basically what you're trying to do is reboot the access point. So when able to do that, you just pull the power cord on this guy, or you can disconnect it off the red port here. But when you disconnect it, give it a couple of seconds, make sure the power does kind of drain out of it. And then you reconnect it back up. Now it is going to take a few minutes for your access point to completely boot up and reconnect to everything. So give it a couple minutes, maybe 5 at the most, and then give your system another try and see if it's back up. Another thing, like I said, this router, it's a big player in your LAN. So that's another thing. If the access point reboot doesn't fix it, try a reboot on your router. And you can just pull the cord out of the back and plug it back in. I wouldn't try to mess with any buttons on the back. I know there's reset buttons sometimes that can just reboot the router, but I've had problems with some people accidentally wiping the router of all of its settings by doing that, so don't do that. Yeah, there I put a do not mess with the reset button. All right, Another thing, if it's not your LAN, it could be the dedicated socket server. So on Heartland's system, at least one workstation, if you just have one, it's the one workstation. But if you have multiple workstations, there's at least one of those workstations that is called the dedicated socket server. And basically what that means is it is the main workstation. It's kind of the one that controls everything. So that main workstation has to be powered on, and you have to have the app up on the screen, and it has to be on the network, enable for the whole system to work properly. So if you see a screen like this where it says not on sockets, that's an indication that something's wrong with your dedicated socket server. Either it's not on the network, or it doesn't have the Heartland app up on its screen, or something's keeping it from talking. It could be a LAN issue as well. But if this is happening, a lot of times that can cause credit card processing to not work. So that's another thing to look out for. Okay, and then along with that, we have equipment is offline. That's another thing that could cause credit card issues. Now, the reason why we don't want you to change Wi-Fi networks is because we don't use these IP addresses, but this is just an example. But your equipment gets assigned static IP addresses, something like this. And it connects to a specific SSID, which is the Wi-Fi name. And if you change Wi-Fi networks, then all of a sudden you've got mismatches in iPads or in SSIDs. So now one iPad might be connected to this one, and another iPad might be connected to this one. And trying to switch networks, it's just going to screw it all up. So you got to keep it all on the point of sale network. So it's got to be on the correct SSID or Wi-Fi name. And then once we connect it to the right Wi-Fi name, we use static IP addresses. That's another thing that gets screwed up if you change Wi-Fi names. It can, and then try to go back to the correct Wi-Fi name. It can completely wipe out your static IP address settings. So then we'd have to walk you through going back through and setting it all to the correct IPs. So again, don't do that. And I can't stress enough, just don't do it. Don't change the Wi-Fi names. If you've got it narrowed down to the Wi-Fi or the internet is working, and think there might be some LAN issues, but you aren't sure how to fix it. But if you're sure the internet's fine, please call us. We will help you troubleshoot. We will help you make sure to do things that won't screw up the system and cause more issues and make it longer before things are back up. Okay, now it is possible to also have connection issues on the payment terminal itself. If it is a wire connection, check to make sure the connection is good and pushed in all the way. If that is fine, try reboot, press and hold the power button and reboot pin pad. So there is a power button on the side. Sometimes it's a piece of electronics. It's just basically a modern computer. So sometimes things get stuck and they need rebooted. So always try rebooting everything first. Don't go just changing Wi-Fi names. Now, it's happened before. It's not very often. It's pretty rare, actually. I think I've been doing this 17 years, and I've only seen it a handful of times, but it does happen. But another thing that can cause credit cards to not work is processor issues or some gateway somewhere with the processor is down. So this one's hard to troubleshoot because you're going through stuff, you're making sure the internet's working, you're making sure the LAN looks good, you're rebooting everything, and nothing seems to be fixing it. So you call us, we call a few places too and look around, and we find out that the processor's having issues. It's nationwide. Like I said, it doesn't happen very often. It's really rare. but it does happen. And when it happens, it's super frustrating because it's not your fault. And you're losing business or having slow business. Maybe customers are walking out, all because this happened. So it's important to know that there are some things you can do to bypass this. So there's a spot where you can force offline mode. Because at this point, like I said, just remember, the internet doesn't go down and the system doesn't detect that the internet just went down, then Store and Forward will not kick on. So first thing to do is to make sure you have your job permission level set for each job type that you want to give the ability to force offline mode. So basically, not everybody is going to be allowed to go into offline mode. This is a good thing to go in and make sure you have set up in advance. Don't wait till it happens to go do it, because if, well, I was going to say if your internet's down, you won't be able to get these updates if you do it last minute. But this particular instance wouldn't be an internet issue. This would be a gateway issue. But you're going to want to log into the admin portal, which is hrpos.heartland.us. Then navigate to location setup, which is on the left-hand side. After location setup expands, you need to navigate to the permissions section, which is also on the left-hand side, but halfway down. Then inside permissions, you need to go to whichever job type that you need to change. So for example, manager. So next on the right-hand side, you're going to see a bunch of options pop up with checkboxes, and you need to scroll through and locate the one that says force offline mode. You need to place a checkbox in there for that one. Make sure you hit the save icon and publish the changes so that your workstation gets those updates. All right, now that you have your permission levels set, you can go into the workstation and turn on the force offline mode. So for that, you have to go to the menu at the top right, these three little hamburger looking icon things here. And then once you hit that, you'll have a drop down show up, and you go to manager. And then on the left, you'll have an option for general. And then once you're in general, there's a section called force offline credit card processing. Once you find that, you select a little gray switch on the right. Then at the top of the screen, you'll notice this force offline credit card processing enabled icon will show up. That means it is turned on. If for some reason this does not turn on and gives you an error message, you need to call us or whoever your Heartland dealer is. If you're with another dealer and you're watching this, you need to call Heartland, whatever you got to do, and make sure Store and Forward is activated for your site. Because if it doesn't turn on and gives you an error message, that's usually what the issue is. Now you should be in offline mode at this point, and then you can take credit card payments. It's basically forcing it into the Store and Forward offline mode. So you can process cards offline. But you just have to remember that it's going to stay in offline mode until you turn it back on or turn that feature back off. So you want to make sure to go back in and select the blue on switch and turn it back to the off. Whenever the processor or gateway gets back on, or whatever issues causing it to not work, and you need it to go back to the regular default way where everything's going back through the internet. As always, if you need any additional assistance at any time, we do have 24/7 service techs available. So if you need us, give us a call at our office number. If it's after hours, make sure you listen to the recordings. And even if you kind of know what number you press, just make sure you listen to them every once in a while, just in case the options change. That's all I have for this video. Thanks for watching. Want to stay up to date on the latest tips and tricks? Don't forget to click the subscribe button and hit the bell icon.